Hi everyone, I wanted to welcome you to the Technical Communication Late Start course, and we start on Thursday, September 13th, and the last day of the fall semester is Friday, December 7th. So we have the 11 weeks, but if you take this course in the summer months, the regular summer semester is 10 weeks. So 11 weeks actually goes very, very well. I also had this class at the summertime in 5.5 weeks, which is too compact. So 11 weeks is just about right. I wanted to mention to you that you have two different options. If you happen to have the old edition of the Technical Communication, A Practical Approach, the 7th edition, you could use that. It doesn't have all of the information in the same order as the 8th edition. The chapters are switched around and they've added some new information, but it's actually fairly similar. So if you happen to have taken this course in the past, you could use that book. Now, if you do have the new edition, which is the 8th edition, which just came out this last year, I most highly recommend that. With the book comes a card, and it is the My Tech Com Lab card. And so what that is you can go to the My Tech Com Lab site, and then in Blackboard, I believe it's either in assignments or documents, there's a join code. So, you have this, it'll tell you what to do on the card as far as what the website to go to, and then your login and password. But when you do that, they'll also ask you for a join code. And all it is, it says my last name, and it has some numbers and letters with it, and it would take you into the class site. So if you want to use the ebook along with the textbook, you certainly can. Some students just buy the ebook alone, which would not include a physical copy of the book. It would just be available electronically on your laptop, your desktop, or your tablet, or whatnot. So, that's an option for you. I do, when I'm away, I do refer to the My Tech Com Lab and, use it, like if I'm not at my desk or I'm at one of the computer labs and somebody has a question, I can quickly look up information. Now, the one good advantage of the My Tech Com Lab, there's a feature at the top in the ebook, and it says search, okay? And if you type in information like I give you a quiz in this class, and one question is, what is the top-down format? Or, as far as what's the difference between technical communication and academic writing? And naturally, you can look through your book or your ebook, but if you want to, you can simply type in the term, and then you can locate it within your ebook. So that's an advantage. Honestly, I anticipate within the next 5 years that more of the books that we use in these classes will go to the ebook format, that everyone will have a Kindle or a Nook or an iPad or something like that. Make it much more advantageous to carry your books around. And I went back to school a couple years ago, and the one project that I did was I had to look at ebooks and their benefits and their drawbacks. But I saw one dental school in New York, New York University Dental School actually used ebooks for their whole program. So instead of looking at the physician's desk reference, instead of looking at Gray's Anatomy, all those books, they were available on their tablet. And so they were able to find information much more easily. So anyhow, that's something that I wanted to mention to you. If you have the handbook from College Writing, which is it's the Brief Penguin Handbook. That's actually a very good handbook, and you may want to use it for this class. If you do not, in the back part of the technical communication section, there is Chapter 17 on style of technical communication, and that has a pretty decent handbook. And then at the very end, on Appendix A, starting around page 6, about 660 or so, actually 658, there's a handbook too, so you may want to refer to that. And also in the back part of your book, there's a couple of other appendixes, even Appendix C, that they give recommendations for further reading. I actually like this. In the back of your book, There's a planning form. So when you're doing documents for this class or for work or whatnot, you may want to actually use that. And that's also in the body of the book as well. I wanted to also mention something that they added this time. They actually have on page, it's hard to see from the screen, but they have a web page, a web planning form, which is on page 529. They did not have that in the previous edition. So, if you're designing a website or you're putting some content up on social media or whatnot, it helps you to design more effective electronic documents. So just wanted to mention that to you. I've taught WCCC now. This is my 20th year, and I full time, and I taught 2 years part time before that. And I've used a number of different books. And the two favorite books that I've used at this college, my number one favorite is our book, the Technical Communication, A Practical Approach. I've used it through 4 or 5 editions, and I love it. It has 17 chapters. It gives you enough information and enough content for the semester, but it's not too much, So, I mean, in this week's, this class is 11 weeks, but some of the others that I have, are 15 and so on. But it gives you enough information, and it takes a practical approach to technical communication, which is much better. Some of these books are just too complicated. The thing that you need to remember is technical communication doesn't need to be complex. It needs to be understood. And that is very, very important. Some years back, I had an advanced composition class, and I had a student who worked for a physical therapy group, and she did a paper, and apparently women, and I guess more men these days, but you can get an inflammation of your shoulder and of your tendons and your nerves up around your neck on both sides and so on. She writes this paper, and in one part of the paper, she wrote this section basically was, she said, your solar plexus and, the upper quadrant of your right whatever. It became very, very complicated, and it was hard to understand. And I said, well, what does this mean? She said, well, simply, all it means is that women who carry heavy purses or heavy backpacks, or even anyone, they can damage the nerves of their neck, and they can have some problems. So why didn't you just state that in the first place? So if you can, when you use complicated information, if you're writing for a general audience, try to make it simpler. You'll see too in our book, especially when you look through chapter 1, but also chapters, especially chapter 4, they talk about like different audiences to whom you would write, and even they mention this at the very back is, would they be managers? Would they be experts? Would they be operators? Or would they be general readers? And for technical writing, you have to write up or down whoever the reader is. So if you're writing to other technicians, they can understand much more complicated information. I had this class in the summertime, and the student used SW, SO, but he had a capital S and a small O, and it's a Marcellus Shale term, saturation of water, saturation of oxygen. But if you know those, if you're in that field, you would know that, just like the medical term QID, which means 4 times a day, or subcutaneous, which is a shot that only penetrates a certain number of layers of skin. Hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia, diaphoresis, which means sweating. The one actor who was in The Green Mile had a myocardial infarction, which is a heart attack. Some older people or some people otherwise will get a TIA, which I don't remember what that acronym means, but it's basically a stroke. So, like I said, you need to learn to adjust up or adjust down, based on who your reader is. But as you go through this class, make sure to read the chapters that I have indicated. Especially the first half of this book, the first 8 or 9 chapters are actually very, very helpful and beneficial, and I think that you'll be able to enjoy, maybe not enjoy reading them, but I think you'll get some key helpful, information from them. Now, I also wanted to mention to you, we will be doing discussion board postings for this class. They changed the format of online classes, and now to go to the discussion board, you have to go to Tools and then the discussion board. And a tip that I have for you is write out your discussion board postings in Word and save them, and then you can spell check and edit them, and then copy and paste them into the discussion board. And in that way, if there's some glitch or blip in Blackboard, then you have the document saved, and then if you can just repost it again, so it's no problem. With the discussion boards too for this class, I give you the capability to edit them. So we write a discussion board posting for the written instructions and also the consumer report, both of which are due later in the semester. But oftentimes I'll ask you questions or I'll tell you to revise them or whatnot, and you have the capability to do that. So I believe we do 6 discussion boards in this course, and they are available for other students to see, but that is a benefit because you learn from what other students do. And the other benefit of it that I can't stress enough is other people have expertise that I may not have. For example, in the summertime, one of my students was a police officer, and he wrote a consumer report on sidearms. Like he has his service revolver, but as a police officer, he wanted to carry another weapon. So he looked at SIG, he looked at Glock, and he looked at Smith & Wesson. There was a student in my class that worked at this gun range over here in Youngwood, and he had an incredible knowledge of weapons. And so I gave some comments, but he said, consider this when you're buying these weapons. Make sure to think about that. And then it helps. And the other students in the class also get to see how I write and how I comment. And then it helps you to see, well, maybe I need to add more. Maybe I need to do this or that. So it's a public sort of discussion area, but it's very, very helpful and it's very, very beneficial. Also wanted to mention to you that there are notes under documents that you can read. And typically, from other semesters, I have notes and I have some YouTube videos and some MP3 files and so on. You can look at those throughout the semester, but again, make sure to read your textbook. Now, with assignments, you can click on those and you can open them up and look at them. And I tend to have a good number of assignments in there. And so what you should do is read the instructions. And if you have questions, here's a tip to the wise. Ask me the questions earlier in the week. I have 5 of these technical communication classes, and then I have 2 other classes, both police report writing. So this semester I just have 2 different types of classes. Some semesters I have 4 or 5 different types of classes, and it's hard to juggle them all. But think of this, okay? Some students will send me an email on Friday and ask me a question. On some Fridays I'll have 150 emails or 100, and I just go through them and read them sequentially. So it's hard to respond specifically then. However, early in the week, or even like today's a Wednesday, I don't have really that much email, and I can respond to email pretty quickly. So if you have, what I would advise you to do is with the assignments, even if you don't want to start on them early in the week, at least preview them to see what they're about, and then if you have questions, then naturally you can ask me. When you send me an assignment, okay, if you send it through Outlook, through the WCCC website, that's what I would prefer to get, email from your college website, from the college email. When you send me an email, put your first and last name in the subject line. Then you're going to put ENG 162-W3, and then the other item you're going to send is whatever the assignment name is, assignment 1 or whatever, assignment 1 and 2. Whatever you're sending to me, and then in that way I know what class you are in, and even if you have a question for me, do the same thing as far as that goes. Also, as well, when you send me an email, address me by name, Dear Mr. Hricik, comma. I am sending assignment 1, which is due by Friday, September 21st at midnight. and then you can add a second sentence. In this assignment, I try to use some good techniques, or I try to use good examples or transition words, and then you can ask me to respond. Please respond by midnight on Friday, September 20th or 28th, rather. Whatever, just give me a week to respond, and then put thank you, comma, or sincerely, comma, and then your name. And that's just good email etiquette, but it helps me to understand what you are sending. And also, too, in Blackboard, I'll actually look there right now. In Blackboard, there is some information on including a signature line in your email, and there's a benefit as far as in doing that. And the reason why it does help to have a signature line is it gives me some information about you. So actually, if you look in course documents, it has information on how to do a signature line through Outlook, through your college email. And all it is just, it's a block of information that will appear in the emails that you send out, with your name, your major, your contact information, and so on. So if your email is not working, or if I need to get in touch with you, more quickly, I can definitely do that. And that is actually beneficial. So make sure to do that. And if you don't want to have, like, if you're sending an email to someone, you don't want them to know who you are, then you can highlight it and hit delete, and you can take the signature line out. But you'll see mine. It says Michael Hricik, Professor of English, Westmoreland County Community College, 145 Pavilion Lane, Youngwood, PA, 15697, Founders Hall 403. I give my email address, my work phone number, and cell. And so that's a good idea, as I said, because people can contact you in other ways. So those types of little tips actually, make a difference. And then I'm just going to go. I only want to spend a couple more minutes going over things today, but I just wanted to tell you what we're going to be doing for the first few assignments. Okay, for this week, get your book and that sort of thing. The only assignment that is due for this week I want you to log into the class, and I want you to go into Tools and the discussion board, and I just want you to introduce yourself briefly by Friday, September the 14th, and then I want you to go in one more time and respond to another student. So look at some of the postings and just say, that's interesting, or, we're from the same hometown, or we're in the same major, but at least it allows you to connect to other students in the class. And of course, what I did want to mention to you as well, under Tools, when you go to email, you can send an email to other students in the class if you like. You can send them to me, obviously, but you can send them to other students. And so, that's a good advantage, okay? And then, again, make sure to follow the syllabus and do the reading each week. For Friday, September the 21st by midnight, so that would be at the end of the day. It doesn't mean, at the beginning of the day, so it's always the end of the day on the day the assignment is due. First of all, send me an information sheet. You can even send it in email, or you can send it as a Word document, and that is described in Assignment 1 in Assignments. You can open that up, but about the third page of that, it'll tell you what I want in your information sheet. So if I have to contact you, or I know a little bit more about you. Assignment 1, which is due Friday, September the 21st, it's basically to interview 2 or 3 friends or family members, and then indicate what they had to say about you. It's actually a fun assignment to do, and you may learn something more about yourself that you did not know. So I wanted to mention that. Assignment 2 on effective email, that is described in assignments. You have to read, I think there's 4 or 5 email or web links about writing effective email. After reading those, I want you to hit, I think there's 4 or 5 points I wanted to ask you about. What does email have in effective formatting? As far as emphasis in email, like bullets, underline, and so on. How do you write effective paragraphs in email? So what I'm asking you to do is read through the links and then write me an email telling me what you learned regarding the points that I'm asking you to look at. So it's very simple, and there's some examples there. So that is what is due for that week, for the 21st, okay? And for that Friday the 21st. And then for the week of September the 24th, you needed to do discussion board 1 and discussion board 1A. Now, when you do discussion board 1, all it is, they are editing exercises. You know, you have to revise these 5 or 6 sentences, but you cannot exceed 20 words for the sentence, and I want you to use compact sentences. And when you go into the book, there's also some really good information in Chapter 17, and this is called Style and Technical Communication. But basically, what they talk about in that chapter, starting on page 636, as far as writing clear sentences, being concise, which is on page 638, and it goes to about 643, but it gives you some helpful tips as far as that goes. And then discussion board 1A, you can just look at the guidelines, and you actually have to do the first posting by Wednesday, September 26th, and then you have to do the second posting responding to another student by Friday, September the 28th. So there are those, and then finally for the week of October the 1st, there is a discussion board posting on the Consumer Report. And with that assignment, it's due actually on Friday, by Friday, December 7th. But if you submit it a week early, you'll get an additional 10 points. 2 or more weeks early, you'll get an additional 20 points. And obviously, it's an inducement for you to complete it sooner, and you'll get more points. And you know, if you're busier with your other classes at the end of the semester, that's good that you get it done. So, but all you have to do is you have to look at 3 brands of a product. You have to do a comparison using 4 points of criteria, or if you use price, then you would have to use 5 points of criteria, and you have to use at least 6 sources. So whether you're buying a GPS, or whether you're buying a new laptop, or a computer tablet, or, you know, I had people that buy lacrosse sticks, bow and arrows, weapons, washers and dryers, you name it. I mean, I've seen it in this class. So what you have to do is you have to do a proposal. Before you do the proposal, please make sure to do some basic research, because don't tell me you're going to look at 3 brands of digital cameras by Olympus, Nikon, and Canon that cost under $300. Olympus probably has cameras under $200. They probably have 35 of them or more. So you know, you do have to do some some basic research. So that is it. I just wanted to introduce myself, and one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce myself is I ran into a student the other day. We went on a tour to the Business and Industry Center in my in-class technical communication class, and the student introduced himself. He says, "I recognize you from YouTube." So I had just thought that at least you get to see me. So if you run into me here at the college or whatnot, we would know each other. And if you ever need to call me. I have my my office phone, and then I also have my cell phone. I check email all the time. But if you haven't running into an issue, call me. I'm more than happy to hear from you. And if you ever need a reference or a letter of recommendation or whatever, just let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. Because this is the way that I think about it. Obviously, I want to help you, and I want you to get a job, and start to make some money and do well in life and so on. It's good for the college, it's good for me as an instructor, and it's good for you. So whatever you need me to do, ask me, and if I can do it that day or even the next day, I'd be more than happy to help you. And if I find out if you have a certain expertise or talent, I'll ask you sometimes for a favor, just as far as like, I had a student in this class, his first name was Joel, and he was very good at editing. And from 2007 to 2010, I went back to school, and some of the documents that I had to do, I would send to him to look at, to edit, and to format because he was a web design major, and he did a wonderful job. So, like I said, sometimes I'll ask you a question, or if you have a tip or so. If you know gardening, I like to garden, or if you like to bake and cook, sometimes I'll have a baking question. So that's it. So that's all I wanted to get into. I hope this YouTube video was helpful. Thank you.